So I will say, like, the biggest thing that surprised me about this team is the fact that they keep bouncing back after every back-breaking loss. Like after the Padres series, after the Diamondbacks game, the Philly games, like they could have easily folded, and they just bounce back each time with the next man up mentality. Like that's I've
That is
never seen this from a Met team
absolutely
before, right?
Yeah, that is absolutely something I've also noticed this year. I think it's been one of those years where I've seen those, and I think as you were saying recently, just going, okay, that's it. Like obviously this is the start of the skid, and then the next day they'll pick it back up and they'll be right back in a hot seat and we'll go on a 4-game win streak. And I think that has definitely been a standout for sure. I think you're absolutely right with that.
Yeah. I think it's also a reflection on Mendoza as a manager. Like, dude came in, having being a bench coach for the Yankees, came in, he knew how to deal with the New York media. He dealt with the first 2 months. Everyone was shitting on the Mets, calling them dead, and they just bounce back each time. And I think they play. It looks like a team that not only plays for themselves and as a team, but plays for hard for their manager too. And that's so rare you see in the MLB these days, with how often the
Absolutely.
front offices use stats or how many managers just feel like puppets for the front office and data people. Like this, yes, I'm sure analytics are being used in these decisions, but it feels like a lot of Mendoza manages with a lot of heart here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing I was going to say is, I think I remember early on we actually got a little annoyed with him for not stepping up for his guys as much and just kind of having I think a couple guys got tossed early on in the season and we weren't happy with the way he had like kind of, handled the situation, not going out there and getting himself thrown out. Like you kind of expect a manager to do. And I think that's another thing I've noticed is we've started to see that kind of fire in him a little bit. And I think the whole team kind of understands where this kind of magic run feels like a little bit and kind of getting that vibe that, they're not really supposed to be there, but here we are. And I think credit to him and I think credit to Stearns as well for pulling off a lot of, low kind of high risk trades that ended up paying off, all the pitchers obviously. And then I think it's no, doubt to say that the Terren, acquiring guys like Terrens, Bader, um, getting Mania, getting, Severino, these guys have all made a big impact and have really helped this team. And that's credit to, Stearns and Mendoza.
And here's the thing I don't see a lot of people talk about with Stearns. He doesn't make the sexy moves during the offseason. He makes the moves that aren't necessarily going to jump off at the front page of the New York Post, but they're going to win you games. Like Tyrone Taylor. No one was talking about that. Harrison Bader, Jose Iglesias, the bullpen guy. Like no one was talking about any of this. And then they just came here, did their jobs, and I'd argue they're the role players are the reason we're in the spot we're in right now.
Yeah, them and that pitching rotation just coming out of nowhere. I mean, obviously, Mania and Severino, Quintana, all veteran pitchers in their own respects, but at the same time, they're MLB journeymen for the most part. And, you don't always expect them to put up a 2.2 ERA, even with Peterson, absolutely going off this year and having a great year for himself.
you know, for sure. And the other thing I don't see a lot of people talking about, I don't know, maybe people have, but the fact that he cuts the slop of the roster off before it starts to impact meaningful games. Zach Short was cut 5 games in. We cut Joey Wendell. We cut Jake Diekman. All players that I think in previous Mets regimes would have stayed around to the end of the year solely based on the GM thinking, oh, I signed this guy. I need to prove that I was right. Like Stearns acknowledges when he's made a mistake will cut the player. And I think that's very important because we don't see that a ton with GMs, like ones that will just make snap roster cuts that they know aren't going to work out at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's definitely a guy who's willing to acknowledge his mistakes and acknowledge, what could be done better and then make that change, obviously. I think that's a good point to touch on. The other thing I want to say is I think being a younger manager, and obviously this being his first team, he's being a head coach for, I think he's done a great job handling kind of that taking over that leadership role in a team and going from being a bench coach who obviously is not, highest ranking coach on the team or anything like that, and going into this head coaching position and really taking it by storm and really just doing a great job this year.
Yeah. And the other thing with Stearns is on the topic of cutting the slop off the roster, this bullpen looks very different than it did at the start of the on opening day. And I think I think he has that philosophy going into a season that your bullpen in April is in no way, shape, or form going to look the same as it does in September or toward the end of the year. We started with Tonkin, Jimenez, um, trying to think of a couple other guys. But like we started off with guys who just like weren't good or were clearly just here for tryouts. And then
Right.
once they learned, they cut them, got new guys via roster cuts or waiver claims, and turned them into put them through the lab. So I think that's another valuable
Yeah.
piece. Stearns knows like when you start, your bullpen's going to look very different by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's got to also affect, AAA and the lower ranks of the MLB. Just with having that manager at the top, sending in better guys and sending in, more prospects and stuff. And I think with that, like we've also seen a lot of guys like, Acuna come up. We've seen Vientos come up and perform, and we've seen Alvarez come up and perform. And I think that, having that manager also can really impact those younger guys who are in the farm system, and I think that's also had a major impact on this team. Obviously, Vientos hitting the way he is and Alvarez catching. And then obviously Acuna stepping up right now when Lindor's injured.
Yeah.
Just big moves.
Iglesias and JD, I'd argue, have been the biggest acquisitions we could have made all year. JD not as so much as with the bat because he's struggled a lot since June, but you can tell he's having a big impact on the young players and their swings.
Mhm.
Vientos looks like a star now. Acuna looks like a star. It's only been 2 games, but he looks very good in what we've seen of him. Alvarez, he struggled, but I'm gonna give him slack with the thumb injury. I think he'll come around eventually. So I think having
Mhm.
like that, him being like almost like a hitting coach who's in the lineup, but is still just serves in the mentor position.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I think that he may be one of those kind of veteran leadership roles that we've been missing. Obviously we had our fair share of problems with Scherzer and Verlander, along with other guys. And I think having someone like JD come in and be able to talk to those young guys has definitely been helpful for sure. I think you're definitely right about that.
Yeah. And definitely with Iglesias, having the OMG stuff is like personality seems to be infectious. Like
Yeah,
he just
yeah.
seems like a
Energy
leader,
guy.
gold glove guy. He didn't have a spot on a major league roster all of last year. Got a spring
Mhm.
training invite, gets called up in May, and has become one of the stars of the team. Which,
Yeah. Yeah, and if I mean, he's hitting 300, and he's done a great job at second base, and I think as well as doing that, he's the energy guy, and I think we all know that. I think that's clearly been his role on this team, and he's definitely done an expert job of it. I obviously giving the Mets that song and the oh my god, and all of that stuff, and the sign, and bringing that energy and bringing that fire every day.
you know, yeah, no, the Nationals 2019, they had Baby Shark. The Phillies had Dancing on My Own. The Rangers had Creed. Like we each team, a lot of these World Series teams even have like songs or like things that prompt that like send them to the World Series. And this could very well end up being one of them.
Yeah,
You know,
no, for sure. I think it definitely could. And I think the Mets using the purple in the jerseys as well ended up working out
but
perfectly.
the City
And
Connect it lined up perfectly by the
obviously
end.
not for Grimace, but I think the connection is there and is fun. So
Yeah. Lindor, I will also say, it seems like since we signed him to that initial contract, he's really stepped up as a leader. He seemed definitely in the first year like he wanted to lead by example, but I
mhm,
think he's definitely turned into like the captain of the locker room. Like he'll call the meetings, he'll call things out when he doesn't like it, or he's there just to serve as the team captain at this point, which I
for
think
sure.
we've been sorely missing since David Wright left.
And well, and another thing I want to touch on with that is the Nimmo and Alonso discussion right now about
Yeah.
them stepping up and what are they going to do? Are they going to do their job in these next couple weeks? Where obviously we don't know about Lindor's return just yet. He should be back soon, but no guarantees or anything. So I think watching what Alonso's doing, and I think so far he's done a great job. Obviously, you can't discredit 2 home runs and five RBI game at all. So I think Alonso's done a great job. Obviously, Nimmo today with the 3-run homer to cap off the 9-run inning. I think those have been great kind of examples of leadership out of those two, and I think those should be thought of during their contract negotiations.
No, definitely. Like Nemo, if we're gonna do anything in the postseason or make it to October, it's gonna Nemo, Alonso, maybe even JD are gonna have to step up and start getting the RBIs that they haven't been for a few months now.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. I think, yeah. 100%.
And the other thing is, if we're in the postseason, I'm not going to really count us out against any team because we've seen what the Phillies did a couple years ago, what the Diamondbacks did a couple years ago. They just came in red hot and took series, went all the way to
Mhm.
the World Series. They didn't win, but they were raging hot for a couple of weeks and they got them to where they needed to be. And I think you could very well see that with the Mets. If Kodai Senga comes back, if we could get a healthy Lindor and you have a 1, 2, 3 of Senga, Sevi, Mania, that's huge. Especially we
Yeah.
can have like Quintana, McGill, Maton, Buto, and Diaz out of the bullpen. That's nasty.
Yeah, I think they could really
Mhm.
become a dominant force against any team. And I think the best thing with this team is that they capitalize on mistakes. I think if you really can't slip against these guys right now. You hang a curveball, they're going to take it deep. Put a meatball in the zone, they're going to take it deep. And I think even with the pitching, if you're coming in with a bad swing or hitching your giddy up, they're going to exploit that. And they've been doing a really great job of it all year.
Yeah, we've had one of the best team ERAs since August, and I don't think that's a fluke. I think you're finally
Mhm.
seeing the effects of Steve Cohen putting his guys in, replacing the Wilpon guys. You're seeing the effects of Stearns coming in the offseason and analyzing what the problems were within the organization, whether it be in development or scouting or just on-field issues, anything. And I think yeah, you're seeing a franchise that looks like it's on the verge of improving post Wilpon.
Yeah,
People
definitely. Definitely.
forget, people seem to forget when Steve Cohen took over the will from the took over in 2020, the team was in shatters. Like we really only had Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil. Like that was about it off the
Yeah.
top of my head. We
Well,
didn't
yeah,
really have
DeGrom
any.
and
We had DeGrom, but we didn't have any like we didn't have any like gigantic
Nate
stars of like,
guys.
we didn't have a Lindor type like we have
Right.
now.
Right.
He hadn't really gotten his hands on the franchise yet. Like he had just
Yeah.
bought the team. He hadn't really fully invested into it. He just quit his full-time stock trading job and he's going to
Mhm.
pay full attention to the Mets now. So I think
Yeah.
he's fully on board. And also
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
consider we haven't even really, besides Lindor, we haven't really signed any big free agents like a Juan Soto or an Alex Bregman. Like we could have more people coming.
Yeah. I mean, we signed. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't discredit Scherzer and
Yeah,
Verlander, but
no, big
I
signings, but
mean,
they were only for like a few years, for a couple years, and
yeah,
it's not like they have an everyday role. Like you
yeah,
are,
and
like yes,
obviously,
they're huge, but they're just pitchers. Like they're only gonna go one every 5 days.
yeah, and obviously not like big now anymore. But Javi Baez at the time, was a big acquisition, I think too. But I get what you're saying. Overall,
Yeah, he Lindor seems like he's fully stepped into his role. Vientos looks like he's realized his potential from AAA.
Mhm.
His ceiling as a 30 home run guy. At this point, I think he could hit 40 next year, provided no sophomore slump.
Yeah.
Along, you know, Acuna, it's only been 2 games, but his swing looks very much like his brother's. Like
Oh, swing is
we could
huge,
have
man.
something special coming, something
That thing is
really special.
that thing is really pretty.
Yeah. No, when I look at Acuna, Alvarez, Vientos, Mauricio coming, like I could see an Orioles like core coming, like the way they have Rushman,
Yeah,
Gunnar, Kjerstad, Kaiser. We could have our version of that. It's
for
very
sure,
possible. And
for
we
sure. A
only and
little
like
more diverse, but yeah.
yeah, a little more diverse. Exactly. We have Gilbert. We have Gilbert still in the system. Jet Williams is still in the system. Ryan Clifford's still in the system. We could
Mauricio
at this
coming back
point,
from
yeah,
injury. You got
if we can get like 5 or 6 of those 8 or 9 guys to turn into pieces, we could
well, and
use the other 3 as trading chips.
I don't think, as
Yeah,
much
more
as
ball.
Beatty has underperformed, I think, I don't know that we should necessarily count him out just yet, or even the possibility that he could be flipped for somebody down the line.
Beatty is definitely. I could see Beatty getting traded in December or January for pitching for like a few relievers or for a number 3 starter or something like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
could
yeah.
definitely see that happening. At this point, I could also, if Acuna keeps this up, I could see McNeil getting traded in December for something too. Like as
Potentially.
much as I love Jeff, if Acuna keeps going this way, it kind of leaves him the odd man out on the
Yeah, for
roster
sure.
who doesn't
For
really have
sure.
a spot left.
He's not a power hitter and he's not a
No,
contact hitter anymore, and you just
yeah.
can't really be neither in the
Unless you
MLB.
unless you stick him in left field at this point. But I don't know what their plan is for. We don't know what the outfield's gonna look like next year.
Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know. I don't know about. I like McNeil as well, but if he's not hitting, at least
It's not great.
280, it's kind of, you know,
Yeah, if you
really
with
home
a
runs.
player like McNeil, who again is super versatile, he plays all around the field.
Yeah,
And but if his role is to be a contact hitter and he's not hitting for contact and he's just struggling the way he was for the first few months, I don't really see a reason to keep him around anymore. As much as that
yeah,
sucks, like
yeah,
I've loved Jeff since he came up in 2019, but I'm struggling to think of a reason to keep him if this keeps going.
yeah, exactly. No, I think I'm on the same page as you. It's just kind of a like, it's fun, but we like the guy, but it's just like you can't find a spot for him, and eventually he just kind of becomes the odd man out. And I mean, maybe you send him down or whatever, and he finds his way, but I
Yeah,
think
he's one of my trade bait candidates this offseason. Him and Beatty, I think, are going to be the biggest fish that the Mets are going to try and get trade away.
right, right, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
Beatty could end up being a. I think Beatty could end up going to another team who still needs like third base. Like I could see the Guardians getting Beatty. Maybe like it's maybe making him play left field.
hmm,
I could see who else. I could see the Cardinals trying to trade for Beatty if Nolan keeps not playing well the way he has this season. I could
right.
I
I
could see
mean,
them trying for
here's the
eight.
one thing I will say. Do you think there's a possibility that McNeil is in that 2021 slump where he hit a little bit worse? And there's a I mean, the guy's still young. He's not old. 32 is not old.
Beatty, yeah, no,
Oh,
I could see him.
no, McNeil.
I could see McNeil. I could definitely see him turning it around. But like, even if he does, I don't see it being here at this point.
Hmm. You just think he's kind of like not the right fit?
Yes, and that's basically because of the young guys coming up. Like, if we didn't have Acuna or Mauricio or any of these young guys, I would keep him.
Right.
But the fact that we have so much talent coming through, and you're banking on like at least one or two of these guys making it and hitting it big. I don't see his spot on the roster. Like,
Okay.
and like
Yeah.
I could see like the Mariners using him, or the Astros, or the
Kind of a
Guardians,
player,
Cubs, one of those teams. Yeah,
utility player on a powerhouse or something.
yeah.
Okay.
I could definitely see him in a Cubs uniform next year.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's tricky. I think there's definitely going to be some questions at the end of this year, obviously, with
Oh
a
yeah,
couple guys wanting to explore free agency. I
we
think,
still we're gonna basically have to rebuild our whole rotation.
right.
The only guarantee is Senga next year and
Yeah.
David. So you're gonna need three more starters. I could see Benaya coming back very easily.
Yeah.
I could see Corbin Burns coming here. Sevy, I'm a little more doubtful of. I think he could end up going off to other pastures. But
Yeah. It's
I think if it,
out
yeah,
here.
if you could get Burns, Corbin Burns would be huge, or Max Fried, then that
Mhm.
sets you up with the rotation and keep Mania. It sets you up with Senga, Burns, one of Fried or Senga, Burns, Mania,
Yeah,
Peterson. Like that's great in and of itself. And then the five spot you kind of just figure out, like maybe Quintana's last year or something.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we can also call pitchers up. There's that possibility too, and we could see,
Yeah.
some younger
Well,
guys chance.
we'll probably have Brandon Sproat up here next year. Crispin Scott's going to be out all year.
Right.
But we have Jonah Tong coming up. I don't think he'll make it next year, but he's a
Uh,
name to watch in this system.
yep.
Um, and here's the other thing is like as much as I wanted to say definitely the Yankees are going to keep Soto, I can't guarantee that because it seems from what we've seen from interviews, it looks like he's going to go to the highest bidder. And the
Yeah.
team that has the highest chance of doing that with all the money is the Mets.
Yep.
So I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but I would put the Mets chances higher than like the Cubs or the Giants or any of those other teams that are going to try and become players. Like I could see them easily. The Mets would easily outbid the Nationals for Soto.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think Cohen wants him too. So
Yeah.
at us, he's gonna throw some money out there.
Yeah. We've also reached the point where like if we don't get Soto, I won't be happy, but I won't be heartbroken either. Like
Mhm.
we have other pieces at this point. Um, to a yeah, to a point where I feel like Soto's not necessary anymore. Like would very much love him, but he's
Right,
not. He
right.
I don't
No,
he doesn't feel like priority number one anymore. Priority number one needs to be pitching.
yeah. No, I know what you're saying, and I think obviously the Mets can fill in, positions with other guys too. I mean, I don't know about Bader staying, or I actually, is it his contract year this year?
Yeah, this is his contract year.
Okay,
I could see
so
Bader being like a Diamondback or a Cub next year.
do that.
Damn, I keep saying Cubs for most of it. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the Cubs need a couple people.
You know, the Cubs, I could see the Cubs trying to buy a bunch of players in the offseason
Yeah,
after what happened this year with the offense just not clicking, Swanson's down season. I can,
right, right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you know,
I think we'll just have to see how it goes. I think it's going to be an interesting off season, though. I think there's going to be a lot of moves.
you know. I think this season is looking like the best we could have hoped for.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I was only asking for them to give me a competitive season, like one where I don't tune out in June. And I almost tuned out in June, but they didn't. So
They got us
they,
just in
but
time.
they really tricked us for those first couple months. But
Yeah.
all I was asking for was competitive baseball, and they have given that to me all the way down to the final 11 games of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. To be 2 games up of on the Braves right
Mm.
now, heading into the final stretch is fun. And I mean, the Mets have a tough last 9 games. There's
It's not
no,
gonna, yeah, no, we're not gonna sugarcoat this. It's not gonna be easy, but they could definitely pull this off. Pull off
it's,
a postseason, Rex.
I don't see them going, I don't see them sweeping it, and I don't see them, even taking 7 realistically. I think it's going to be more like a 5-4 and just,
Yeah,
beat the
yeah.
Braves in that series.
Yeah,
And
5-4, 6-4, or even maybe going 500 could get you in. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see how this weekend plays out against the Phillies to get a real good aim on where we're gonna need to be by the end of the final game on Sunday.
yeah,
But I think if you can at least take two from Philadelphia this
hmm
weekend, you're in a good shot. Win the Taiwan Walker game, win the other two games you still have a shot. The Wheeler McGill start, I'm not going to be very hopeful for,
yeah.
but you still got a shot.
I
The
mean, he's
Brave,
good
yeah,
this year. It's possible.
yeah. Even if you're like going into Atlanta, like I will never count out the Braves. Like as a Mets fan, it is now in my blood to never count out the Braves.
Yeah,
But they're not at full strength. They have no Albies, they have no Riley, they have no Acuna, they have no Strider.
yeah,
Like they are definitely the most vulnerable they've been in a very long.
for sure, for sure. And I think that is definitely our opportunity to jump on
Yeah,
them. And I will say, I think they have done a good job of that.
yeah, yeah. And if the Brewers keep playing well,
Right.
um, until the final weekend, I could see them starting to benching Churio and Adames just to get
Yeah,
them
because
rested for
they got
the.
the title,
Yeah,
right? Or
they've already
theirs,
clinched the postseason, but they're still fighting for the seeds. But if
right?
they've clinched one of the top two seeds, I could see them resting a few of their stars to get
Very
ready
well.
for the postseason. For get ready for the
And
postseason.
then again, I think the Diamondbacks, we just need them to lose too. And they
Yeah,
have, I think they're
they've
playing
they've cooled
KC,
off. Yeah,
right? They have to play
yeah,
Kansas City.
yeah. No, the Braves have
That's
to play. I don't know. Maybe the Diamondbacks have. I'll
Braves.
check the schedules later. Yeah, no, the Braves play Kansas City the final weekend of the season.
Okay, well, that's going to be good because they're going to be close.
Yeah, no,
So
the
I
Braves
think,
aren't the Royals won't make that easy either. Like
yeah,
this is the best shot we've had in a while to
yeah,
bounce and make some noise. And
yeah,
with the way the last few seasons have gone, for other teams making the World Series off of a Cinderella run, I could see no reason why we can't be that team. I'm
right,
not saying we will, but we definitely have one of the better shots to end up being that.
right. Well, what I'm talking about with KC is that they're up 2 games on Detroit, which is they're the fourth right now. They're
Oh,
not in the playoffs,
oh
but
yeah, so the Royals could be fighting for something by the end.
exactly, and need to be in kind of full strength mode against the Braves potentially
Yeah, no.
last weekend.
Yeah, the Tigers look like they could end up being the Cinderella team
Yeah,
from the AL. Like they have Skubal, they have Riley Green, they have Torque, they have dudes in there too. So
yeah,
like I'm not counting them out either. Like this is a wild card postseason. Like
right.
I truly don't gun to my head. I wouldn't my best answer would be Phillies, and even then they still look vulnerable.
Hmm.
So there's no team where I can just like, oh yeah, they're gonna win the World Series.
Yeah, it's been a really close, interesting year this year.
And
There's
I honestly prefer that. Like a season
oh
where
for sure.
everyone has a shot over like where you have like the five teams you know are gonna, you know,
Make yeah. There's no, I mean, even the Yankees are only 88 wins right now,
yeah,
and
like
they're one
they
of the
could
better,
very well get caught off guard
right.
by like the Guardians. I could see the Twins beating them. Like no, yeah, no.
Guardians are my
Every team could end up like even all the division winners could end up sitting on at home by the next
yeah,
round, which is
yeah.
insane to think about considering like the history of
It's
baseball and
been
how that's
it's
gone.
been close the last couple of years to stuff like that. I mean, we've seen a lot of random teams win, so
You
it's
know, if the 84 win Diamondbacks can make it last year, the Mets can too. Easy.
absolutely. And I mean, I think the Mets are going to win at least, 86, 87 at
No,
least.
you know, and even if we make the postseason, we get first rounded and swept. I'll be sad, but it'd also be like we made the playoffs in a year where we weren't supposed to do anything. Like that's the best we could have asked for, and we got it. Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be next
it'd
fun
be yeah,
is
Pete and Nimmo can turn it on. Lindor can come back fully
hmm,
healthy. We can get Senga maybe in the bullpen in October if he feels comfortable, convert him to a starter. City
yeah,
Field could become a nightmare for other
yeah,
teams.
yeah. It could. It really could very quickly. And I think it might, I feel very weird to say it as a Mets fan, but I feel optimistic.
Yeah, you feel the magic, which is insane to say because as a Mets fan, you always wait for the other shoe to drop. Like when's the
Right.
failure coming? And it still hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, yeah. It is, which again worries me, but
We still have 11 games left.
we just have to have confidence. We have to have hope. I think,
You
yeah,
know, and
we'll
that's
see.
honestly that's the best we can have at this point.
Exactly. Exactly.